Good evening, I'm Nisha Pandey and you're watching Prime Times News. Let's start with the headlines. Foreign Minister Narayan Khadka says Nepal will not move forward with the US State Partnership Program. Chair of CP&UML KP Sharma Oli disapproves Maoist Center Chair Pushpakamal Dahal's remark that SPP was initiated during his tenure. Women's rights activists express dissatisfaction over the non-implementation of women's rights in the Constitution, states the tendency to use women in warfare is alarming. North Korea rushing to contain an outbreak of a malignant intestinal disease. 40 million affected, 73 already killed by the disease. And Nepal starts with a win in the ACC Women's T20 Championship, defeats Bhutan by 50 runs. Now news in detail. Foreign Minister Narayan Khadka said that Nepal will not move forward with the US State Partnership Program, SPP. During the discussion of the International Relations Committee of the House of Representatives, Minister Khadka said that the SPP would not be taken forward. He said that the official view of the government regarding SPP has already been public, and even the Prime Minister has said that Nepal will not sign any such agreement. Foreign Minister Khadka further said that SPP was not in the national interest and hence State Partnership Program will not be implemented. Khadka, who arrived at the Federal Parliament's International Relations Committee for a discussion, said that the chapter of the SPP was closed and no process would be taken forward. He further added that Nepal cannot go beyond its sovereignty and the provisions of the Constitution and its non-aligned foreign policy. The meeting was attended by Chief of Army Staff Prabhuram Sharma, Foreign Secretary Bharat Raj Podel and Defence Secretary Kiran Raj Sharma. The meeting started at 9 a.m. today morning. Chair of CP&UML KP Sharma Oli has disapproved Maoist Center Chair Pushpakamal Dahal's remarks that the United States State Partnership Program, SPP, was initiated during his tenure. Addressing a training program for UML elected local representatives in Kathmandu today, former Prime Minister Oli, objecting to Prachanda's statement, clarified that SPP did not begin during his tenure as the Prime Minister. Oli claimed that the public was being misled by saying SPP was brought during his time. He said that the decision to initiate SPP was taken by the then Prime Minister, Sushil Koirala, as the Minister of Defence on 23rd of September 2015, 3 days after the promulgation of the new Constitution. He further added that Koirala had then urged the US to allow Nepal to join the SPP through Nepali army. Oli claimed that the Nepal army had written to US pursuant to the decision made by Sushil Koirala as the Defence Minister. Saying that he was elected the Prime Minister on 11th of October 2015, he added that Rajendra Chhetri on 27th of October was found to have written to the US Embassy requesting the establishment of SPP on the basis of the decision from the Council of Ministers. He stressed that the letter to the US Embassy should be written by the Ministry of Defence or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not by the Chief of Army Staff. Oli said he protested after his return to power when the Indo-Pacific strategy was debated in 2017. Saying Prachanda has been saying SPP was initiated by him to create confusion, he urged people not to believe that SPP was initiated during his term. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Donald Lu has alleged China for unnecessarily hyping the issue of the State Partnership Program, SPP, in Nepal. He also alleged what he said Nepal's big neighbor for playing a role in trying to oppose the ratification of MCC agreement in Nepal. In an interaction with the Nepali community in the United States, Lu said Nepal's big neighbor has unnecessarily hyped the issue of the SPP in Nepal. In an interaction with the representatives of the Nepali community in the USA, Assistant Secretary Lu said, without naming the country, that everyone was aware of who made a futile attempts to fail the MCC in Nepal, and to mention it is Nepal's biggest neighbor. Lu said the big neighbor intends to maintain its monopoly in Nepal. It should be recalled that the United States and China were engaged in allegations before Nepal ratified MCC. The US State Department had at the time blamed China for delaying the passage of the MCC, while the Chinese Foreign Ministry had warned the US not to forcefully impose any MCC like in Nepal and would retaliate if imposed. The agreement with the MCC was passed by a majority in the Nepalese parliament soon after the US-China debate. Lu had visited Nepal last November while negotiating an agreement with the MCC. We'll be right back. Welcome back. A meeting of the National Assembly today accepted a proposal to seek consideration on the Appropriation Bill 2079 BS received from the House of Representatives with a message. The proposal tabled by Finance Minister Janardhan Sharma in the third session of the Upper House amidst the obstructions from the major opposition, CP and UML, was passed by a majority. Similarly, member of the National Assembly, Ganesh Prasad Timil Sinha, proposed the session to dedicate time for headings-wise discussions on the appropriation bill for 3 days, beginning on 20th of June, while the schedule for replies of respective ministers has been proposed for 23rd to 24th of June. Meanwhile, Chief Whip of UML, Kimlal Bhattrai, in the National Assembly said that the party was concerned about dubious activities during the formulation of the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, saying that the budget formulation process was a highly sensitive issue and only authorized people are allowed to its preparations venue. He demanded the constitution of a parliamentary committee to investigate an alleged role of unauthorized people in the budget preparations. Stakeholders have expressed dissatisfaction over the non-implementation of women's rights in the Constitution. Women rights activists and women political leaders have expressed concern over the lack of participation in the interaction program on women's participation in Kathmandu. Speaking on the occasion, Joint General Minister of the Nepali Congress, Mahalakshmi Upadhyay, said that a huge leap has been made if one looks at the rights given by the current constitution. She also mentioned that the international community has accepted that Nepal's constitution is excellent in terms of women's rights. However, Upadhyay said that the rights could not be ensured in the implementation phase. During the program, women's rights activist Lily Thapa reminded that women were not only used but also sexually assaulted during the 10-year conflict. She stated that the tendency to use women in warfare is alarming around the world. Desertification and Drought Day was observed all around the world today. Every year, World Day to combat desertification and Drought Day is observed on 17th of June. The day is celebrated to turn the degraded land into healthy land. It is to find a solution to combat desertification and ensure the restoration of degraded land to enhance food fertility. The factor that led to the desertification of land are caused due to human activities and climatic variations. The land is extremely dry areas prone to overexploitation and inappropriate use of land. The factors that cause weak productivity include poverty, political instability, overgrazing, irrigation practices, and deforestation. The day is special as it reminds people across the world to prevent land degradation, which is possible only through human efforts. The history behind this day began in December 1994. The United Nations General Assembly to combat desertification and drought. Therefore, the United Nations, NGOs and countries have been organizing events to spread awareness regarding the significance of this day. The theme for this year's World Day to Combat Desertification and Drought 2022 is Rising Up from Drought Together. It's time for another short break. Please stay tuned for more news. North Korea is rushing to contain an outbreak of a malignant intestinal disease, state media reported this week. The statement comes a month after the country acknowledged it is dealing with a COVID-19 outbreak. State media have not disclosed the name of the disease, but say North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has sent medicines to combat an acute enteric epidemic in the western province of South Hwanghae. Enteric diseases are often acquired by consuming contaminated food or water, but can also spread from person to person. They cause symptoms such as a diarrhea, fever or cramps and can be deadly if left untreated. The South Korean government suspects the disease may be cholera or typhoid fever. North Korea, which is impoverished and underdeveloped in many parts, has long seen periodic outbreaks of such diseases. South Korea has offered to help deal with the disease, but North Korea has not responded, the officials at the briefing said. The situation could cause a major challenge for the North Korean government, which may not have enough resources to deal with two major disease outbreaks at the same time. The extent of the outbreak is not clear. Authorities have sent enough medicine for over 800 families suffering from the disease in South Hwanghae, according to the state-run Korean Central News Agency. North Korean state media reported that Kim was distributing medical aid as part of his noble outlook on devoted service for the people's well-being. Still, the outbreak probably complicates matters for the regime, which is already fighting a coronavirus outbreak amid growing economic woes and a chronic shortage of vaccines and medicines. The European Commission issued an opinion recommending that Ukraine should be granted candidate status for European Union membership, a first step that will add a significant momentum to the country's campaign to join the bloc. European Commission President said that the Ukrainians were ready to die for the European perspective. While the recommendation boosts Ukraine's campaign to join the bloc, it does not confirm membership or candidate status. To move forward, all 27 member states must agree. Even if they do, full membership could be many years away. Ukrainian president welcomed the historic decision and said the positive first step on his country's EU membership path would bring victory closer to Ukraine. The EU activity comes a day after the leaders of Germany, France, Italy and Romania visited Kyiv. Conditions across the country remain bleak. Communication with the roughly 500 people trapped inside a chemical plant in Ukraine was unstable due to relentless Russian bombardment, a local official said. At least 4 people were killed by airstrikes in a neighboring city that is likely to be Russia's next target, according to the regional governor. Meanwhile, President of Russia, Putin, describes Western sanctions against Russia are reckless and insane and of trying to crush the Russian economy in one go by force. Putin described sanctions as a double-edged sword and said Western countries were considering imposing sanctions not just on Russia, but on any country that falls out of their favor. Putin says this will have long-term consequences across Europe, warning that the systematic economic decline in Europe's economy will worsen the profound issues within Western societies. Now sports updates. Nepal starts with a win in the Asian Cricket Council ACC Women's T20 Championship. Nepal defeated Bhutan by 50 runs in the match played in Malaysia. Spinner Sangeeta Rai and fast bowler Kavita Kuwar helped Nepal register a winning start to the ACC Women's T20 Championship 2022 today. The duo helped Nepal defeat Bhutan by 50 runs in the championship that kicked off in Malaysia today, chasing a target of 95 runs for victory. Bhutan were already out for 44 runs in 17.4 overs, thanks to exceptional bowling by Rai and Kuwar. Bhutan's Chiring Jangmo scored 16 runs off 28 balls. No other batswoman of Bhutan put up noteworthy performance. Spinner Rai took 4 wickets in the match, while fast bowler Kuwar and Sitarana Magar took 2 wickets each. Likewise, Indu Burma and Ashmina Karmacharya bagged a wicket each. Earlier, Nepal chose to bat first in Malaysia and posted 94 runs in allotted 20 overs, losing 9 wickets. Nepal's Kajol Shrestha scored the highest 20 runs off 26 balls. Bhutan Sonam Palden took a wickets, while Anju Gurung and Rashi Cheki bagged a wicket each. Nepal will next be facing Kuwait tomorrow. With this, we have come to the end of the news. Before wrapping up, here are the headlines once again. Foreign Minister Naren Khadka says Nepal will not move forward with the US State Partnership Program. Chair of CPNUML KP Sharma Oli disapproves Maoist Center Chair Pushpa Kamal Dahal's remark that SPP was initiated during his tenure. Women's rights activists expressed dissatisfaction over the non-implementation of women's rights in the Constitution. States the tendency to use women in warfare is alarming. North Korea rushing to contain an outbreak of a malignant intestinal disease. 40 million affected, 73 already killed by the disease. And Nepal starts with a win in the ACC Women's T20 Championship, defeats Bhutan by 50 runs. That's it for tonight. Thank you for watching Prime Times News. Good night.